gonna hit the read. All right. Hey everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I recently crossed the milestone of 100 YouTube subscribers, and to celebrate that occasion, I have a fantastic guest who is joining to share his insights. He's a two-time Tableau visionary and four-time public ambassador. His name is Adam Mico. Adam is going to share his insights and perspective, which for sure is going to add some new dimension to think about how data in real world works. And we are going to get to know how he thinks during his daily activities or his journey about the data as well. Okay, so we are going to get started with his introduction first, and then we'll move on to some more insights from him, and then we'll have got the question and answer sessions as well. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, drag it there. Okay, to introduce about Adam, like I said, he's a Tableau visionary, two-time visionary, four-time ambassador. Okay, let me just scroll this few things. Yep. So we are gonna get to know about his journey, about data and Tableau overall, how he has gone through, and I'm gonna share some of those questions. I'm gonna ask him the questions that has been sent out to you, to me from my YouTube subscribers. Okay, let me get started. First of all, the message behind these videos, okay? The reason I've started creating the content on YouTube is for four of those reasons, okay? I was something similar back then when I was working in the data industry, and even I was kind of keen to learn some of those aspects, how people think about data, what are the key components anyone has to think before actually getting started with the data visualization or data analytics overall, right? So that's how I was in the same shoes. If you are a new learner in this particular domain. So in that, during those days, I used to interact with some of the Tableau members who were active, same like Adam, try to understand how they think, get used to some feedback from them, how they actually think about the data. And that helped me to change my career in a very great way. Tableau has become my passion. So rather than calling myself as a Tableau user, I've become a Tableau practitioner. So most of the Tableau community members think about. So nobody's a master of anything. They learn on everyday basis. And that's how something you become passionate about using that tool, right? So I owe that kind of gratitude to give back to my community by creating some contents, how I've learned over the period of time, and maybe sharing some real world information. And that's the only reason and the motto that I have been doing these videos. And to have a person like Adam, who's a really master or like a visionary of this product, right, is definitely going to help us to understand his thought process when dealing with the data. Okay. So that's the behind the message of creating this video. Now, let's get to know Adam more. I've done from my end. I'll hand over to Adam's journey and everything just to showcase. This is his public profile link. He has got more than 43 visas on his Tableau public profile. These are the stats. He's pretty much familiar face in this community. You can see those reactions and the views on his dashboard that he has created on his public profile over the period of times. So Adam, I'll hand over to you. Please share your journey about this, your journey in this data, so that our users, viewers can get more insights from you as well.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's a terrific milestone to pass 100. Do you mind if I share my screen just to show my slide?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. It looks like you disabled it.
Sorry, this is the first time that I'm doing. So yeah, you have it now.
We got it now. 1 second here. Here we go. So here's a little bit about me. My professional passions are Tableau, data enablement, and generative AI. Currently, I work as a principal of data visualization enablement and fluency at Moderna. Personal, I'm a husband, father, grandfather, dog father, and I happen to be autistic. I live in the greater Boston area. And other items too is that I am part of the Data Leadership Collaborative Advisory Board, author of Tableau Desktop Specialist Prep Guide for Pact Publishing. As mentioned, Tableau Visionary and Ambassador, and I earned the Golden Hoodie in Dreamforce of 2022. And I'll stop that screen share. So pretty much like many people, I came to Tableau Community after working with Tableau for a long time. So when I started, I learned about the product way back in, I think it was like late 2011. So we had a conference, and I was working in the public sector. I was the guy good with Excel. So they're like, oh, we have this business tool that you could potentially use. And it was really exciting to me. It was kind of like a mind-blowing moment for me, because I saw what you could do with it and the potential of that tool. And that got me really excited. I was training unemployment insurance law then, but then as a side gig, I was doing more and more of the Tableau stuff until it developed into a new career for me. So after several years of using the product, working with the product, and so forth, I became a data analyst. And then I still wasn't part of the Tableau community or anything like that. I was just doing my own thing. And then I reclassed within a couple of years to the top level. I could reclass to where I was working. So I was really bored and I wanted an opportunity to give back. So what happened at that point is I was looking for like Tableau community stuff that I can give back to. I wasn't really a fan of Twitter, LinkedIn, or anything like that. So I went on Facebook. And there was this big Facebook page. I think it's still pretty big. It's Tableau Magicians by Tuan Wang. And he had this incredible blog and so forth. And he kind of worked a lot with me and allowed me to be part of that community and be an administrator and so forth. And at one point, he could tell where my passion was. And then he talked me into joining the Twitter and LinkedIn community to be part of the data fam. So I didn't have a Twitter account. I didn't really do anything with LinkedIn. The only thing I did with LinkedIn before is because LinkedIn, they guessed my position wrong at my job. So I just updated a profile, but left it alone. So I didn't do anything with it until that point of time. So I believe the date was August 3rd of 2019 when I became part of the data fam. So I didn't really do anything with visualizations or anything at that point. What I did, I mean, I did a lot more with visualizations at that point, but I realized my design was really bad. I've been using the product for a lot of years. The analytics were really good and so forth. I wasn't concerned about that, but when I was looking at my design compared to other people, you could really see that it was a work in progress because I worked in a silo. I didn't have a community. I didn't have people telling me what the best practices were. People were just happy with the data visualizations I gave them at work. They weren't really concerned about red, green, or too many colors or best use cases for data visualization. So I took that as really inspiring that I still had a lot to learn, even though I used the product for a number of years. So I worked a ton on developing data visualizations, collaborating with others and so forth, and blogging about it. So people that were really inspiring to me, I would be blogging about and have like a visit of the week to show some of my favorite visualizations from the community. So I did that and a lot of data fam interviews for a while, and that helped me connect really well with the data viz community.
Gotcha. Yep. Really fascinating story, Adam, because from transitioning from just working with the data to actually knowing the best practices about that tool, right? It's a quite of a journey. And I still remember mine as well when I used to interact with some of those Tableau back then experts you can think about, right? Getting some feedbacks from doing those community data sets, those ones, right? So it's definitely kind of a university for Tableau users to understand how to use that tool rather than just, visualizing those things. So Can you just elaborate a little more about your phase of getting feedback from those, Tableau experts or Tableau, your buddies you can think about, because that's something of pivotal points from anyone who is learning the tool, right? So it's a
Right.
one thing when you get used to the tool, but something to apply the best practices and rating the best practices for ensuring you deliver the end product, right? How was that your journey?
So with the best practices part, I would seek feedback from friends of mine in the community, those that were becoming friends and those that I really admired. So the people in particular were Michelle Freeman, Sarah Bartlett, Zach Bouders, Lindsay Betzendahl, as well as Kevin Flerledge. So I worked a lot with those people, trying to get feedback and trying to push myself to do better each time out. I knew I wasn't going to be at a certain level after a couple times, so I had to keep pushing and doing more. And collaborating with people really helped me understand their approach to data visualization, which I could apply what I wanted to apply to what I did. So that really helped me improve a lot more quickly than I would have otherwise. Also, just having a number of items from the community that are available to me really inspired me to do better and do more with the community.
Okay. Yep. Definitely. Those guys you mentioned, right? Those are really the stalwarts of this Tableau community who has, in fact, helped me as well during my journey, initials when I used to interact with them. Definitely worth a shout out for those ones. If I'll have to ask this question, you have been in this journey of your data and Tableau using, right, now for a few years. If you have to start this once again, what points do you think you would like to prioritize before starting this journey once again, so that my you viewers of this video, right, they might help or benefit from that? What are the key components do you think everyone has to know learning this skills as well? What do you think?
Well, great question. So my initial journey with the community was just learning what's out there and understanding what's available and having initiatives to work from. So two major initiatives that would be super helpful for anybody starting out, which I would have loved to know when I started working with Tableau, because when I worked with Tableau, I didn't reach out for the community. If I needed to figure out something, I would Google it. That's basically extended. Maybe I would see a couple YouTube videos, but not really pay attention to who they came from. But going in, being part of the community right away would really help you speed up your pace as far as being a really good data visualization designer. So I would definitely suggest that. Tableau also publishes a data fam community roundup each week. So if I were starting out for the community today, that would be something. If I didn't want to go on Twitter or LinkedIn too much and I just wanted to kind of learn stuff quickly, I would do that. But I really strongly encourage you to put your stuff out there. So request feedback. It doesn't always feel good, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah.
But then you'll realize how quickly you'll be able to improve if you really take in that feedback and absorb it and try to iterate on it. You could see the improvements really quickly.
Gotcha.
Whereas
Definitely.
at work, you really don't have that as much. You have requirements. Oftentimes you build to requirements. And once those requirements are done, even if best practices aren't followed, because a lot of times the people that are giving requirements don't really understand what best practices are, you just go ahead and push it out and you don't really worry about it after that. But when you're publishing work publicly, you really have to take pride in what you're doing, and it shows your desire to get better and improve.
Gotcha. Yeah. Can you also emphasize real good points? Can you also emphasize on having a Tableau public profile? Because
Right.
something that I've felt over these many years, right, that stands out. So it's a kind
Right.
of your portfolio building for yourself. It's showcasing your skills. Can you please elaborate your thought process of having it? Because I think you already have a great one, right? But for someone who has actually now learned those skills,
Right.
are pretty much comfortable of working with those Tableau's features and everything, but they may not have a public profile. How
Right.
do you think of it, having a public profile is definitely going to be helpful for that? What do you see the importance of having it?
So it really shows the big thing, especially after you create a number of visualizations, you can really see the progress in your work. You also have the ability within the past year and a half or so, Tableau has a hire me button. So if you really want to get in a career in data visualization analytics and be a developer of data visualizations using Tableau, there's no better resource than to be able to share your portfolio with people, because oftentimes when I'm interviewing people for jobs, I want to know what their portfolio looks like to get an idea of where their headspace is at and where they are showing what they can do and how they have been improving. So it's not only seeing what's out there in your best visualizations, it's about the journey. So the great thing is that it automatically accepts what you feature on top is in descending order from most recent to least recent. So you can, if you climb up, you could see the value and the impact of what your public data visualizations and your work with others really has on your capabilities. And if you keep going at it, it's only going to get better, especially if you put yourself out there, you accept feedback and iterate.
Yeah, definitely worth mentioning that, because I still remember one of when I was being interviewed by one of the company, the panel had it went through my public profile, and they were like looking into that. And the question was, how can you improve this dashboard? Because that was been built when I was learning as a tool back during my learning phase. So definitely it's something that brings new ideas once the product was been designed and as you grow in your journey as well. So definitely worth creating as well for me.
And the
All
other
right.
thing about that too is that you get to work with, you get to see what your favorite creators are building too. So you get to see their portfolio and see how they have grown over the years as well. Many visionaries and ambassadors make it a point to not really hide their visualizations, even their ugly beginning ones, even though they become a lot better as they go on, just to show the journey and the impact of what that is. I also created a number of data visualizations when I was a Tableau evangelist for a prior employer, Curis's Tableau public portfolio. So I did about 25 or 26 in 2021 just for them as well. So oftentimes what you see on somebody's public portfolio may not just be the only things they've been working on. There's a lot of opportunities to collaborate where you can have more visualizations and other portfolios. So it's really exciting to be able to kind of look at the whole process.
Gotcha. Sure. Definitely. Cool. All right. So I'm going to share my screen once again back, and we have got like questions that have been collected for you to review. So let me share my screen real quick. All right. Let me know if you are able to see the screen. Okay. The first one. First step when you see the data in a problem statement. So, I mean, the question is more headed towards like how you start about like creating of those data visualizations, right? When your data has been handed over to you, and you know what you're trying to solve, right? So, what kind of questions do you put for yourself before giving any development efforts? So, how is your line of actions?
So my first line of action is really starting to listen to the business. A lot of times as developers, you get locked in just seeing requirements and not getting a real understanding what the business requirements are. So you really do need to have a conversation and discovery session with the business stakeholders. The other thing too is that you really want to know what the primary question that dashboard is set to answer. So you really want to talk to those stakeholders as well, really fine tune it to because if you have too many, if you have a dashboard that's trying to solve too many questions, it's really confusing and convoluted, and nobody will be able to use that dashboard. So you have to think of a primary question: what is this dashboard trying to answer and respond to, and how do I build to create that? What data do I have? What's the state of that data? So there's a lot of things. So it's a lot of data investigation, really talking to your business stakeholders, working with people to make sure you really understand the question that needs to be asked, and considerations of what you would do if multiple larger questions need to be asked from that data visualization. So you may have to create multiple dashboards or something else along those lines. And the other thing too is that you have to make sure you set expectations. So you have to make sure that you really talk to people about what they have and what they don't have, and be able to identify, what you would need and how you'd be able to get that processed in a way that best addresses their primary question or questions that they have with their data.
Gotcha. Yeah. So rather than just jumping on like creating of those charts and visualizations, get more insights out of what you're trying to solve, knowing who is your audience and what makes sense to them more of rather than creating the charts, right? If I have to just ask one trailing questions to that, right? How emphasize or how importance do you say for having a domain knowledge of your data, right? So most of the time getting familiarized with what we are trying to do, right? Like you mentioned, doing what we are trying to solve. So having that domain knowledge, how has it helped you in your Tableau journey?
So in my particular case, it really helped me when I started working with data. I was the person that really understood the data. I was the SME, and then I became a product owner. So it was really easy for me to create reports that made sense because I really understood the data. But the problem is that a lot of times it's difficult to understand the data, and it's difficult to understand what they're trying to get out of the data. So those are things I really consider with that. And could you go back to that question? I kind of lost my train of thought a second.
No, I mean, I was more into domain knowledge about the data, what we are trying to solve, right?
Right.
So, especially like technical terms, right? So, normally what we do is we get some like data available with us, but what are those key technical terms meaning in terms of like for the stakeholders, right? So, it's a kind of a pivotal information that lies in
Got
the
it.
information of domain knowledge, because that helps us to take a judgment which charts, which KPI, how it needs to be represented, right? That was the question towards.
The other thing too is that if you don't have that domain knowledge, you really need to work side by side with somebody that does. So if you can employ an SME to help you work out some of the things. The other thing too is that you want to figure out ways and talk to them potentially about simplifying the language if at all possible. So a lot of teams, especially if you're working in the public sector, there's a lot of acronyms. Those don't really help anybody understand and use the data visualization, especially those that are just coming into the role off the street. So if you have a bunch of acronyms, for example, on your data visualization, there's a big problem there because there may be like a number of people that understand it, but people coming in wouldn't understand it. So you really have to work with them to simplify the information that's on your data visualization and make it so it's more general so people can understand as much as possible. So you want to limit the domain knowledge that appears on there because it makes it an additional hurdle for a lot of those people are trying to get into the data visualization that may not have that domain knowledge.
Gotcha. Yep. Makes sense. Absolutely. All right. Moving on to the second question. What considerations guide your decision on selecting a specific chart type? So this is a very common question.
Right.
Anyone who has, irrespective of their experience in data visualization, which chart is the best one? What are your considerations?
Oh, so yeah, that 99% of the time it's going to be a bar or line chart that will answer most of your questions. But there are certain situations where it makes sense to create other types of data visualizations. I try to lean more towards simple rather than complex because your stakeholder, being able to explain a data visualization that's complex to your stakeholders, although it may look cool, takes a lot of work and it makes it very difficult for people to work with. So initially, my initial thought is, what is the simplest way to get that data on there that really adds to insight, but doesn't hurt people and impact people a lot. So there are so many different types of potential use cases for different charts that are used less frequently, but you have to kind of look at it a lot. So like if I want to look at difference between two items, I like something called what people would say a dumbbell plot or a connected or enclosed dot plot is kind of what I use a lot, because you could see two measures, but then you could see the variance between them. So that's a slightly different type of visualization than what you would normally see in many cases. that's different from a bar chart or a line chart. But pretty much every data visualization has a use case. Even those really funny tortoiseshell or Voronoi charts, they have a use case from time to time, depending on what you're doing. Mapping your data, I think people use maps a little bit too frequently. The only time you would use maps is if you really need to chart that geographical data. If you don't really need the geographical component of it, there's other simpler charts that you could use, and it will make it easy to work with for your stakeholders. So I think my main thoughts are, how do I make it as simple as possible? How do I still make it pretty? But also, is there a different chart type that could be used that would explain the situation better? So Chartio really has a good resource on what are normal use cases for specific chart types. So that's what I would suggest, is if you're going there, and Tableau also has that in their help article, although I don't necessarily agree with some of their choices.
Gotcha. Understand. Yep. So, I mean, it's more of conveying the message, right? Rather than making the dashboard prettier. Absolutely. Really, very well summarized, Adam. All right. Moving to the third one, dashboard design, which include transactional data. So this is another very common situation working with the real world data. Majority of the stakeholders want transactional data to be showed in cross-tab, right? How do you put your creativity in designing those dashboards? Because not only they hammer the visualization standpoint of view, but they also cause some performance issues. So how do you deal with those kinds of data?
A good question. So yeah, if you left it up to finance people, for example, they would either want waterfall charts or tables, text tables, and that's basically what they want. I like to have a details or text table as kind of like the last piece. So it's not something that, if you're going to a dashboard, I want the initial things to be able to see high level charted data. And if I create a dashboard that requires a table, usually what I would do is I would create a secondary dashboard for those details. So right up front, being confronted with those details, you don't really get insights, you just get data. So you really want to be able to have the capability of working within those insights and utilizing those insights to find what you need in that data table. So oftentimes it requires kind of like a filter action, where I would go to, I would utilize a filter action from those initial charts where the data is that you want to dig in further, access that data on that secondary chart by selecting an item on a bar chart or any other type of chart that's not a data table. Data tables I always consider secondary, and it doesn't really add to a lot of insight. It's basically something you can get in Excel. So if you can get a data table in Tableau, those are probably the least friendly as far as what the purpose of Tableau is. But it's important for a lot of people, so a lot of times I use them as secondary.
I understand. Okay, reveal the data as on when required, rather than showing the complete data sets in a cross-tab. Makes sense, absolutely. Cool. Fourth one, workaround for doing multiple pivots in Tableau. So this is something I feel Tableau is good at visualizations, but ensuring the data is been modeled according to the business needs. So something it's not on that a greater extent compared to other tools. So how do you see about having this functionality in Tableau? Basically, like having multiple times pivoting the data.
So yeah, I really don't mind that too much. Usually what I would do is I would prescribe for the back end, or if you don't have a data engineering department, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. You do have to model your data for Tableau, and you may have to do multiple pivots. If you utilize prep, it's pretty simple to me. It's not a big, that's generally not a big issue. But working around is, generally, I would create something on a back end that wouldn't require me to pivot. And if you can't create something in a back end, I would use Tableau Prep to do those multiple pivots, because it's pretty simple to work with, and it doesn't really impact your performance of your data visualization, because you create an extract with that Tableau Prep piece where you could work with that, and it would just come up as any other standard data visualization table that you would be working with.
Okay, so bring the data ready-made available for Tableau Desktop to just visualize it rather than creating some kind of
Yeah.
modeling.
So yeah, for Tableau Desktop, I would never use that. I don't want to say never, but I would use that for the lightest of lifts for modeling. So maybe changing names and so forth, if that's all you have to do. But generally, you would want to use a tool like a Tableau Prep, or if you have access to Alteryx or Data IQ, you would want to be able to create data sets there, make that extract, and not
Yeah.
worry about it again.
Yep. Tableau's good at rapid analytics. All right. Fifth question. Tableau's vision in upcoming years in terms of competitors. We have all seen some of Tableau's competitors who have rapidly grown up over the period of time in terms of like features, visualizations. How do you see Tableau as a product in upcoming years in overall?
Great question. So I'm a futurist myself, so I'm always looking toward the future. The future of the product is even though there's going to be a lot of legacy items that will remain, like desktop app and all that stuff, really the future of the product is cloud and how to apply generative AI to the cloud space for the product. So the best way I could explain it is that when you use OpenAI or ChatGPT, it's really good for general stuff. But the power of generative AI is going to be how it learns based on the tools that you work with day to day. Is it going to be able to answer your questions in a way where you don't have to always look for stuff? And that's where I see the product in the future is that you're going to be able to ask questions and it's going to be able to do calculations for you. It's going to be able to help you prep really easily. A lot of your work, the cloud environment will be improved significantly where I could see a large range of people actually using the web authoring over desktop because of the added functionality you'll be able to get with generative AI, for example, and a number of other plugins that you could look at. So as far as a data visualization tool, it will be that, but it will be a lot easier for people to use in the future. And it's going to be I could kind of see it as potentially a new golden age. The problem is that there's a ton of competitors in this space too. So even with ChatGPT 4, you could do data analytics where it does some basic Python charting for you. So it's not quite there yet in the data visualization space. Tableau has the leg on what you could do with data visualizations, and your limit is only your creativity. But it will be able to provide a great opportunity for you to do more with it. And that more will be with the helping hand of generative AI and how well it learns that tool and how easy it makes your job.
Gotcha.
Once you have the data in. The data is going to be always going to be 80 to 90% of the Tableau work. But once you get there, it's going to be a lot easier in the not too distant future to work with Tableau and its product.
Gotcha. So do you see BI like in terms of like having visualizations and analytical works plus AI? So it's a BI plus AI in future. Do you see that's what's happening now?
Yes. And also, I don't want to say dashboards are dead, but there's new ways that Tableau is going to be introducing data that's not required to be a dashboard user. So for example, there's already metrics out there and there's already alerts where people could respond to Slack messages or email messages or messages on their cloud or server environment explaining what that is. Not necessarily a dashboard thing, it's more of a metrics thing. But Pulse is going to step that up even more. So I'm excited about those that really don't want to go to Tableau Cloud or Tableau Server, mess around with the data visualization, but get the data that they really need and want and have the opportunity to act on it very quickly. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. So do you still see the traditional way of dashboarding still be there this world, because it still requires a human intervention to understand and get the more sense out of the data rather than relying heavily on the AI part, because it still needs to cope up with the intelligence what we drive it while creating those dashboarding.
Well, what I see is that the executive experience will be a little bit different and better tailored to them, Whereas for everybody else that actually needs to dig around and work and explore and get an analysis of something, they really should be working with the dashboard, because it really provides a lot more context and information that you wouldn't be able to really consider yourself. So you'd have a lot more opportunities to really dig in and understand that data and work with that data in a way where you're always going to need that. So, but some people don't require that, and those people will be better served from stuff like Tableau Pulse and so forth.
Gotcha. Sure. Makes sense. Absolutely. Well, those were the 5 questions that I was been shared by my subscriber. Since this is 100 YouTube subscriber celebration, one bonus question from our end, I hope you don't mind, which is the best Tableau advice that you have received during this journey and you would like to share with our audience?
Be authentic. So basically just be yourself. So when you're out there, you don't have to pretend you're anything that you're not. Be allow yourself to ask for help. Allow yourself to step outside of the box and do something that's a little bit scary for you. And that will give you an opportunity to grow. If you do the same thing over and over again, and you don't really listen to people and you just publish dashboards, you're not really going to have an opportunity to grow, especially if you're not communicating with people in the community and so forth. So be open. Join Twitter for Tableau Data Fam, as well as LinkedIn. I consider Twitter as kind of like your Saturday get together with your Data Fam family, whereas LinkedIn is more casual Friday. So depending on what your experience is, but we do tend to have more fun on Twitter. Absolutely. Or X-Twitter as it's called now.
Absolutely. Not only you'll get to learn your skills, but lots of friends you can make it. I can promise that. I've been on those platforms for years, and yeah, definitely worth being on those platforms, especially if you're using Tableau. Cool. Adam, really appreciate you jumping on this invite and for being my first guest on my YouTube channel. I really enjoyed this conversation. And thanks for sharing all those your insights, and really great to have you over here.
It's an honor to be asked. So thank you so much, Titania, and congratulations on your accomplishment. And I can't wait for you to get your next 900 so you can celebrate 1,000.
Definitely. Sure. Yep. We'll have another round of session, man, once that milestone is achieved. But really, thank you once again. Really, it should help my audience viewers to get more perspective from a expert, like I said, who knows this product very well from using and sharing their knowledge as well. Yep.
Thank you
once
so
again,
much.
Thank you. All right.
Have a great one.
Yeah. Have a nice day. Bye. I guess